Okay, councillors, we're live at the moment. Firstly, to anybody who's watching the broadcast tonight, my apologies. We've had a technical issue here. We're a little late starting. Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Hunters Hill Council number 4481. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and the waters that surround us. And I pay my respect to their elders, past and present.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us to the common good as in your sight, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. I don't think we have any apologies this evening. Are there any declarations of interest? We'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor McLaughlin. Any discussion required, councillors? I'll put those in favour. Against, that's carried. Thank you. Are there any matters arising out of those minutes? Councillor Collins.
I might just have a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest, sorry, that I missed in 4.6.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Okay. Councillors, we have an item which is in the agenda, which is item 4.7, licence agreements for the Happy Hens, which is 4.7. Suggestion that we move it forward. Councillor Miles, Councillor Williams will bring 4.7 forward, and we have some speakers for that. Just one moment, councillors.
We have a supporter, Emma Paxton, who says, "Dear Mayor, councillors and amazing hard-working staff of Hunters Hill Council. From the Happy Hens, a huge thank you to you all for believing in us. In 2018, we came to you with a plan for using part of a disused bowling green at Henley Community Centre. We wanted to create an edible garden for our community. We had Bedlam Bay Community Garden up and running, however, we needed more space. Hunters Hill Council were forward thinking and allowed us half of one of the old bowling greens at Henley for 2 years from the 3rd of August 2018. Henley Green Community Garden began. Thank you. I am thrilled to say that the dream has come to fruition and we have a fantastic edible garden that is an asset to the local area. The Happy Hens thank Council for our peppercorn rent arrangement. We are all volunteers and are only now in a position where we can start to look at creating a sustainable income into the future. Our space at Henley is valued at $2,500 per annum in rent by council. Using this space, the Happy Hens have raised over $65,000 of assets via federal, state and local grants, fundraisers and paid work for our volunteers, the environment, for those less able and the community at large. The Hunters Hill residents, preschool students and many others from further afield enjoy this space daily. We all thank you. Whilst it is difficult to measure smiles, we have put together some statistics for you, our benefactors at Hunters Hill Council. Henley Green currently has 32 financial members plus children and 200 plus people participating in volunteer activities between the 3rd of August 2018 and the 15th of June 2020. 3,284 hours of volunteer time have been spent at Henley Green between the 3rd of August 2018 to the 15th of June 2020, equating to $137,000 if the same number of hours were paid, and that comes from the ABS estimate on the per hour value of volunteer time. 38 hours per week is spent at Henley Green working on the productive garden, equating to a full-time job for one person. Volunteer hours have increased by 41.5% in the second year of operation at Henley Green. There has been a 25% increase in the number of new volunteers to the site in the second year of operation. These are all very positive signs of a solid and growing interest in the activities at Henley Green and support of our group in the community. Thank you. The Happy Hens plans to align with Hunters Hill Council's strategic objectives in the Community Strategic Plan with a focus on community. Along with Council, we aim to create an inclusive, connected, informed and healthy community which encompasses the well-being of all residents, which is CSP 2020. We feel that Council does encourage and support community groups that are inclusive, engaging and enhancing social cohesion. The Happy Hens being a case in point. We have preschoolers mixing with senior members of our community and enhancing well-being all round. All ages and abilities are welcome with wheelchair ramps installed, sensory aids, wheelchair-friendly tables, veggie pods raised for use by all, plus a safe, green, large area for kids to run and enjoy the outdoors while learning about where food comes from. We also aim to assist community members and council with managing and preserving our environment. CSP 2020, sustainable living, is important to our group, and we always look to innovate and use resources that are waste to others. Our edible garden is built on recycled cardboard, our chook shed, an old unwanted cubby house. We compost and create our own soil. Most of our edible plants are from seeds we have saved or been donated. Our newest project is our community recycling project. This is open to all and involves collecting and recycling tomato punnets, egg cartons, milk bottle tops and rings, coffee pods, glasses frames, bread tags, coffee grounds from local cafes, and compostable food items from households. We look forward to Council letting their residents know this is available for all in the community. We would like to thank everyone at Hunters Hill Council for making Henley Green Community Garden a reality for all the community. We appreciate our relationship with Council and admire the hard work that Council staff have been putting in for all their community groups and residents. We thank you for the 1-year lease extension and look forward to a solid partnership with Hunters Hill Council moving into the next phase for the Happy Hens and well into the future. Thank you all. Warm regards, Emma.
Thank you, Emma Paxton. The next speaker we have is Lee Kootman, Director of Riverside Preschool.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also a supporter, and says, to whom it may concern, over the last few years, Riverside Preschool families have enjoyed forming a strong relationship with Henley Hens Community Garden. The preschool children have been involved in a variety of rich experiences with Henley Hens, such as planting and watering the garden, arts and crafts experiences, to name but a few. The highlight of many preschool children's day is visiting the chickens daily to feed them, give them a pat and enthusiastically collect eggs the chickens have laid. A lot of children request daily that they go down to see the chickens. One of our families was instrumental in looking after the chickens in their home until they were big enough to handle the conditions of the outdoors. Although this family has left the preschool now, they still come back to visit the garden and chickens regularly. The children and families have been fascinated to observe the garden space flourish and love visiting the area daily to collect veggies, herbs, or spend some time taking a walk through the garden beds before or after preschool. The preschool children and their families have been involved in many community events at the garden, involved in morning teas to celebrate Seniors Week, Clean Up Australia Day events, and Working Bees, all of which have brought the community together. The children are now busily involved in learning the benefits of sustainability initiatives to support the Henley Hens, learning the value of growing your own produce to recycling waste, which further extends the preschool's early childhood education, besides all the lovely community connections this has provided. The children have benefited by having the community garden and the many learning opportunities it provides to children, learning where food comes from, developing life skills in growing and cooking food, understanding of life cycles, plants and animals, care of the earth and living things, and encouraging a love of nature. Our community is looking forward to our relationship with Henley Hens to continue in the coming years and look forward to strengthening our community through shared projects and events. Kind regards, Lee Kootman, Director.
Thank you, Lee Koopman. The next speaker will be Anne McGeehan.
Also a supporter says, Dear Council, thank you for providing us with this wonderful space. I grew up on a farm in Ireland and miss the feeling of space and getting my hands dirty. I was very restricted with a small backyard that didn't get a lot of sun. This space is so important to me, it helps connect with the community. I truly can't imagine my life without it. We have a great group of volunteers with Helen, Emma and Nicole to guide us. I get sun, exercise and a chat with the other volunteers. We share our ideas and learn from each other. I have brought my grandchildren to the garden. They love checking out what's new. The chickens are a great source of interest, with the kids checking for eggs. It is a very community-minded area and the council's help is very much appreciated. Kind regards, Anne McGowan.
Thank you, Anne McGowan. The next speaker is Sarah Vickers.
And Sarah says, Dear Council, I understand that next week, continuation of the lease for Henley Green Community Garden will be discussed. I have been a regular volunteer at the garden for a number of months and believe it offers considerable benefits to the community, as well as to the individuals involved. As a volunteer, the garden improves both my physical and emotional health. It enables connections and establishment of community. This is valuable to me in normal times, but especially at the moment with the limited movement and social contact from the enforced COVID-19 conditions. Being there on Sunday afternoons, it is also a focus for local people and visitors, with people of all ages stopping for a chat to find out more. The garden is clearly aligned with Council's strategic plan, with its focus on community, environmental emphasis, and commitment to enabling access for all. It fits well with the village and community feel, and we value so much as residents of the Hunters Hill area. I would ask that Council extend the lease and allow us to maintain this valuable community resource into the future. Best regards, Sarah Vickers.
Thank you, Sarah Vickers. Our next speaker is Janet McIntosh.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Also a supporter, Janet says, support for the continuation of lease of land for Henley Green Community Garden. To whom it may concern, I first became aware of this outstanding project when I was looking to involve myself in a nearby community activity in which I could be outdoors and work with like-minded people. Over the past 15 months, I have been astounded at the dedication, determination, and cohesion of this group as we strive to provide a thoughtful, plentiful, and welcoming place to come together. Furthermore, I have been impressed to learn that the group not only embraces the interests in gardening and share of knowledge and harvest, it is also selflessly engaged in supporting other community activities and those in need, be it for welfare or mental health. This site for such an activity is outstanding on many, many counts, notwithstanding being a wide open area with sufficient sun to suit the purpose, easy access with just enough privacy to deter vandalism, and has access to both water and power, which are essential for the project to be possible. The location of the Henley Green Community Garden provides a fantastic interest and example for the children in the adjacent preschool who are frequent visitors and are engaged in feeding and caring for the hens. On occasions, planting seeds and watching their development into beautiful plants and discovering just how the vegetables are at home start life. Frequently, visitors drop by out of curiosity and stay for a chat or share in the harvest, and sometimes they return to join the team. All are amazed at the area our Henley Community Garden Group has developed, and many nearby residents express their delight at how the site is being used. This project is a fine example for other councils to aspire and to provide. I strongly urge Hunters Hill Council to extend the lease of land at Henley's Green for continued use as a community garden for the foreseeable future. With thanks in anticipation for the continuation of this lease.
Thank you, Janet McIntosh. The next speaker we have is Pam Freeland.
Thank you. Also a supporter, Pam says, Hunters Hill Council regarding Henley Community Garden. I first met the Happy Hens at Lane Cove at a community sustainability event in 2019. As the local community garden had ceased operating, I took the opportunity to join their team of volunteer gardeners late in the year. I had recently moved into a unit and sorely missed my garden. I am able to do small-scale balcony gardening, but the opportunity to grow food for the community with surplus going to the Sydney Community Services appealed to me. The hens and the other gardeners were very welcoming, helpful and patient. I have learned much from them all and hope to apply some of the things I've learned in my unit block. Nearby residents, walkers and bridge players are always interested in what is going on and frequently wander over to us to ask questions about the produce and what we are doing. The preschool children next door use the garden as a resource and even feed the chooks and collect their eggs. As an early childhood teacher, I know the value of these experiences, and the knowledge of where food comes from and the interaction with the natural environment cannot be underestimated. When COVID-19 and subsequent travel restrictions hit, I reluctantly gave up my weekly sessions as I am particularly vulnerable to respiratory disease. I watched the volunteers' efforts from afar using WhatsApp and was impressed by their dedication. The careful organisation of rosters, strict hygiene and social distancing allowed the gardens to continue. I realised what I gained from the garden during my absence: physical exercise, social interactions, mental health, and a sense of doing something worthwhile, often difficult for recent retirees like me to find. I have recently returned to weekly sessions and am impressed with the vision and enthusiasm Helen, Emma and Nicole display in their care and concern for the environment and their community. I would encourage the council to continue supporting the Happy Hens community activities on this site and allow them to further engage with and involve the community in their proposed plans for the gardens. I remain yours sincerely, Pam Freeland.
Thank you, Pam Freeland. The next speaker we have is Sabina Fielding-Smith.
Thank you. And Sabina is also a supporter and says, "Dear Mayor Bennett and Hunters Hill councillors, I write this letter in support of the Henley Green Community Garden, instigated and conducted by the Happy Hens Social Enterprising. I have been involved in this group as a volunteer since its beginning in 2018, first with Bedlam Bay Community Garden and now at the site of the Henley Community Centre. The community garden at Henley is a wonderful venture, not only to grow organic fresh vegetables, but also as a community hub where local and non-local residents can have meaningful connection and networking opportunities. Everyone is welcomed, no matter what their skill base is, because it is a place of learning, sharing and inclusion. Volunteers attending come from all walks of life, attitudes and places from around the globe. In a mutual atmosphere of sharing, kindness and tolerance, the garden has blossomed, not only physically, but also figuratively, to encompass a lot more. The Happy Hens Social Enterprise Executive has gone to great lengths to include other community groups, including the Henley Preschool Kindergarten, Boomerang Bags, 5 for Ride, as well as inviting groups from the North Ryde Business Park to experience firsthand what it is to install garden beds and grow your own food. They also have invited people with a disability from Royal Rehabilitation Centre to attend monthly bag making sessions at the garden until recently. These are placed on hold currently because of COVID-19 pandemic. I'm very fortunate to be a member of this group and have the opportunity to not only grow wonderful, fresh, organic produce, but to find friendship and a wonderful sense of community and inclusion. I'm very glad that Hunters Hill Council has given this community group an opportunity to use this old bowling green that was lying idle. A new lease of life, which is a fabulous asset into the future. Yours sincerely, Sabina.
So thank you to Sabina Fielding-Smith. We're very fortunate we have people like this in the community, and I recall the determination when they approached council some time ago wanting to set this up, and I remember some very enthusiastic councillors who got behind it as well. So it's been great to see it doing so well. So the recommendations there, page 214, moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Miles?
I would actually also add a fourth point, if possible, just thanking the Happy Hens for what they're doing for the community down there. Obviously, it's a fantastic thing to have done, and they did a great job down at Bedlam Bay, and moving up to the Henley, the old Henley Bowling Club has obviously been able to sort of expand what they were doing, and I love hearing from Emma and the gang there what they're planning for local coffee shops and things, and how they're recycling pods and what they're doing with the boats that were in the basement of the old club there. So I'd just like to also thank the Hens for what they do, because it's an amazing, vibrant little community hub there as a result of their efforts, and they do spend a lot of time and effort working on that space, and it's great. Whilst it's only year by year at the moment, I think we're going to have some serious discussions about the future of the club itself. But that being the case, the Hens being there just makes it a much more vibrant and pleasant situation, and they do a very good job.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Is there a particular word you'd like to use, or is it a vote of thanks?
I'd just like to put a point for that Hunters Hill Council thank the Hens for the service they provide to the community through their community garden.
Okay, thank you. I think we've captured that, Councillor Sanderson. So any further discussion required, councillors? Councillor Williams, just one moment. We unmute you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I congratulate the group for the important work they're doing. I have noticed in recent times and it was mentioned in the one of the speakers that they've now ventured into sustainability and set up some rather unique initiatives in terms of things that are always problematic, bottle tops and coffee pods and a whole range of other things that seem to fall through the cracks. Just wondering, is council able to and is planning to promote that through our newsletters, etc.? Because I think it'd be important for our community to be aware more broadly of the opportunities which they're providing.
Yes, I can see one of the staff members telling me yes, and we'd be happy to do that, and we'll put it into the next newsletter. Thank you. Good suggestion.
Yeah, I congratulate them on their efforts. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Any further discussion, councillors? Councillor Crasoy, I know you're a great supporter of the Happy Hens in the beginning.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations to the Hens, 2 years on, and they've just done so much in that short time that they've had. And I think, you know, council through our community grants, we support a lot of community groups, some that service a few dozen people, some that through their reach service a few hundred. And it's a small grant that we offer people, but they do so much with it. So by having this, as you say, peppercorn rent agreement, we've enabled the Hens to give so much back to our community that we reap the benefits of. So I'm grateful to them. We live on the leafy North Shore, and so you would imagine a lot of people have the opportunity to stick a veggie patch somewhere in their median strip or on their small backyards. But what somewhere like a community garden brings is the skills that a lot of people don't have and therefore don't explore the opportunity of nourishing themselves from home. And they also bring the scale, so you can really do more around composting and sustainability and projects that benefit everyone. So congratulations to them for that. I was listening on the news the other day about our small local newspapers and how important they are to be the voices of local communities, and how important local initiatives get lost now because some communities are missing out on that reporting from their papers. And so I think it's a good opportunity to thank the Weekly Times as well for the support they've been giving the Hens and promoting the work that they've been doing, and hopefully promoting even further the partnership that they have with council and the things they hope to achieve. On local Facebook page, Love Gladesville, I noticed a couple of weeks ago, someone said, do you think it'd be a good idea to have a community garden here in Hunters Hill, Gladesville area? And someone else responded and said, oh my God, haven't you heard of the Happy Hens at Henley Bowling Club? So the word isn't out there enough yet. And it started a really good conversation on that particular Facebook page. So people are hankering for it. And so I think communication is key. So it's great to hear that council are planning on doing some more promoting of their initiatives. And of course, very excited to hear that they're venturing deeper into sustainability initiatives, which I know they're all passionate about anyway. So good things to come, and thank you, Hens.
Thank you. I'm assuming there is nobody wishing to speak against the recommendation. So if you're all done, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour, against, that's carried, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll go back to the normal, we probably should have dealt with the message of condolence first. That's my haste. So we'll go back to 2.1, the message of condolence. That's for the late Rhonda Boyd. So, and the recommendation is the minute be received and noted and a letter of condolence be forwarded to Rhonda Boyd's family. With much sadness, I advise councillors and council staff of the passing of Rhonda Boyd at the age of 93. Rhonda was a most respected citizen of Hunters Hill who was known for her commitment to others. Father Bates described her recently as being a part of the fabric of the church and of great integrity and faith, larger than life, with a warm and generous heart. The oldest alumni of Villa Maria Catholic School, Rhonda Nee Timbrell, recently shared with current Villa Maria students memories of being taught by the sisters and summers swimming in the baths her father helped build at Tama Creek, where they used for their swimming carnivals. Rhonda was the loving wife of Arthur Boyd, who was the mayor of Hunters Hill in 1998 and 1999. She has many legacies, and on behalf of council, I extend to Rhonda's children and children-in-law, Felicity, Martin, Gabrielle, Nicholas, Damien, and their respective families, our sincere condolences as we fondly and formally remember their dearly loved mother and grandmother who contributed so much to our community. So I'd like to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sanderson, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Another item which I'd like to deal with is a public service medal awarded to Miss Jane Winter. The recommendation is that the minute be received and noted and a letter of congratulations be forwarded to Miss Jane Winter. Excuse me, councillors. On the 8th of June 2020, the Governor-General and Chancellor of the Order of Australia, His Excellency General and Honourable David John Hurley, ACDC retired, recognised 933 Australians in the Queen's Birthday 2020 honours list. Included in the list was Woolwich resident Miss Jane Winter, who was recognised for outstanding public service to the visual arts and cultural sector in New South Wales. Miss Winter is the current head of philanthropy at the New South Wales Art Gallery, whose impressive array of accomplishments included raising over 26 million in her role over the last 15 years. Significantly enhanced the gallery's reputation with Australia and abroad and assured the future health of the gallery's acquisitions fund. We congratulate Miss Winter and thank her for her contribution to the community. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Williams. All in favour? That's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you. So we move to item 4.1, the adoption of the budget, fees and charges, long-term financial plan, rates and charges. Do I have a mover? Councillor Williams. Seconded, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really have nothing more to add to it. It's now been on public exhibition and it's now due for finalisation by the council, so I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Anybody wishing to speak against? Councillor Collins.
not necessarily against, but I just have a question. One of the issues that concerns me is I want to understand what the $50,000 for the bike plan is, because whilst I appreciate that we do need to obviously do more to make these cyclable, better cycleways, I think a lion's share of the actual work that needs to be done is to improve the roads and the footpaths, which are all listed in the 2004 bike plan, which council produced, and it's got a list of items of things that need to be done, which ultimately the bike plan is ultimately a package of things that need to do in order to make it a better environment for cyclists. Now, there's about $327,000 worth of work that was asked to be done in the 2004 bike plan, but I haven't seen anything as to whether or not that's all been completed. Now, my concern with the $50,000 for the bike plan is not that is not allocating it for the good of cycling. I'm worried that it's just going to go to a consultant to produce a report, and then we won't have any money to actually, put in some bike racks or whatever it is. I've looked on Social Pinpoint at all the fantastic ideas, and they look. A lot of them seem like no-brainers. I think some bike racks at certain places where it would be convenient. Now, I haven't seen in the budget anywhere the provision to actually pay for things that need to be done that's identified by the bike plan. So perhaps someone could maybe elaborate on that, because I'm thinking of some kind of an amendment, not to take that $50,000 away from cycling, but just ensure that it's actually put to what I ultimately think would be better paths and roads so cyclists can ride on them. So could somebody, through you, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if...
Thank you, Councillor. I'll pass it on to the General Manager. General Manager.
Through Mr. Mayor. Don't unmute me. Sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might ask the Director of Finance and Corporate Strategy to talk about the funding that's in the 2021 budget, if you can, for the implementation of the bike strategy. If bearing in mind, the Director's acting at the moment, so we may need to come back to you, Councillor Collins, but there is funding in 2021 to implement the short-term actions that come out of the current review of the bike plan. Director.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I will need to come back on that one and just have a look at the list of works that are in that 2004 plan and compare that with what we may have done since then and what's intended to be done in the budget. So I think it'd be appropriate to come back with a memo to councillors just to outline what the approach is that will be taken there.
Councillor Collins, we'll just unmute you one moment. Go ahead.
My concern is that I just don't want that money just to go to a consultant. I just think it's a waste of money. So is there a way to I'll seek your advice through you, Mr. Mayor, the General Manager, how we can make it clear and also clear to the community as well that this money is actually going to be put to something that's actually going to have an effect rather than,
General Manager.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll come back with details, but the money that's in 2021 is for physical works. The plan itself is currently underway. But we'll come back to you, Councillor, with the details of the works. So it's physical works improvements.
Hold on just for a moment, Councillor. So it's not for a consultant, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's my understanding. It's for physical works in 2021.
So, because my understanding that the bike plan was taken out of the budget last year. Well, it wasn't in the budget last year. So how is it already commenced?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll come back with details with a fire memo.
Okay, so we have. Is there any way to have assurance that this money is actually going to go to roads and footpaths? I mean, it's just a little bit loose because I think there's an expectation that we are clear about what we're sort of spending the money on, and I certainly I know that there'd be a lot of people in the community that would be frustrated as paying for a report. So I'm not sure how to address this because we don't really have the answers on it.
General Manager, is there anything you can add at this point?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately not. I'll need to come back with you with the details. Councillor.
Just one moment, we'll unmute you. Go ahead, Councillor.
We've got this understanding that we still have submissions don't close until the 24th. Is that right? Yeah.
General Manager.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, to the Director.
Can't.
You just need to unmute.
Unmute Barry.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the 24th is the date people have to come back with any comments they might have on the revised capital works program that council adopted. That's listed on page 192 of your agenda.
So not the whole budget. Okay, I see.
No, it was the 12th. We had no submissions up until the 12th, so it's just that's the only bit that's outstanding. And we'd be only bringing that back. So we're asking council to adopt that tonight.
Okay.
And we'd only be bringing this part of it back if there were submissions. I could probably suggest if you want some more detail on this before we do any of the works, then you could actually have an additional item on to call for a report on the.
I don't want reports. I want shovels in the ground. I just want, if I'm assured that this is not going to a consultant, then I'm happy for things to start getting built and paths to be made safer and all that kind of stuff. If that's the understanding, then I'm happy to let this go on that understanding.
Thank you, Councillor. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I reiterate, I believe that the funding for next year is for physical works.
Okay.
If that is different, I will come back to you. But that's
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any further discussion required on this point? Can I put the recommendation? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour, against, that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, item 4.2 is a summary of council investments as at 31 May 2020. Move Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Collins. Councillor Miles. Thank you. Councillor.
Yeah, all good.
All good? No, nothing.
Yeah.
Anybody wishing to speak against?
Not just
For Councillor Collins.
and I understand this might be difficult because we have an acting sort of director tonight, but I asked a question about the what was it, the office equipment and furniture.
Yes.
Which we still haven't got to the bottom of. The restricted amount was over 600,000 in 2019 financial reports or something like that. And so can we just get that back for the next meeting? Just an explanation.
To the General Manager, I recall the request, yes.
three, Mr. Mayor, yes.
We'll have an answer for you ahead of the next meeting. Thank you. Any further discussion required, councillors? I'll put the recommendation to report a note, receive a note. Thank you. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 4.3 is the Parramatta River Catchment Group meeting held on the 4th of June. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Crasoy. Councillor Williams, would you like to take us through this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm privileged to be the representative on this group, and I've spent a lot of time in state government and local government, and I've never ever come across a process that has a collective of 11 councils, 4 state agencies, all working together to achieve positive outcomes for not only the Hunters Hill community, but the broader Parramatta River catchment and Sydney community. It's an outstanding master plan that they produced in the first phase of the operation. Now they're deep into delivering on that master plan through their operational plan. And at the last meeting, which Jackie Vollmer, the staff representative, was along at, I was amazed at how much progress they've made and the contribution which it does make, not only to the broader community, but also to benefiting our community. And some of the highlights in that process is particularly the standardise the standards process, which will help to clearly define objectives for councils and state government agencies to adopt regarding stormwater quality, waterways and riparian lands. And those issues are very relevant to us, and I understand our staff have been working closely with this group to help develop those, because it's been a collaborative effort, and it's one that I think will provide us with some very good tools to add into our LEP and DCPs when we do the review process, and also into the LSPS. It's an important contribution which this group have made to what is an ongoing and a long protracted issue around improving stormwater quality and its impact on our waterways and our riparian lands. Equally importantly, there's a lot of environmental initiatives coming out of this group, and to mention things like water sensitive urban design, which again is key to improving outcomes and can be delivered through our planning instruments to assist us in that process. Also, they've been working on infrastructure contributions by working with the state government and local councils to try and enhance and focus those planning agreements and tools on improving, again, the water quality outcomes. There was a report on the master plan delivery engine update, which is the way that they keep track of what's happening within the master plan, which has 10 key outcomes it's looking for in developing. And I'd urge anybody who, oh my goodness, my computer's going to close down. Anybody that wants to find out more about that to go onto their website, and you can look at the delivery engine and you get updates on where they are in a range of different projects which are being conducted. And at the moment they're working on 3 swim spots within the Parramatta River. They're working on things like tools to be able to report on the quality within those systems. They're working with universities to provide a better understanding of what our fauna and flora is within that catchment area, and working with councils, Indigenous representatives or officers to try and piece together a much more coherent and inclusive arrangement with their knowledge and how we move forward with our waterway. And equally interesting at the meeting, Professor Bruce Thom, who's the head of the Coastal Council, gave a very interesting discussion on what is happening from the Coastal Council's point of view and the government's direction to not just look at individual parts of catchments, but to have a much more integrated outcome for catchments. And so the Parramatta River Group is now going to work closely with the catchment management program to ensure that there's a continuation down through the catchment and into those water bodies. And the government has a desire to have a more integrated process to these. So I'd happily report to council that I think council is getting good value for its contribution to this group. It's also getting good cooperation with other parts of local government and state government in tools that can assist us in doing our business effectively, and equally importantly, protecting our environment and our waterways, which we have quite a fair share of our municipality fronting onto and influencing those areas. So I commend the report to council, and I think it is an extremely worthwhile and beneficial process for not only Hunters Hill Council, but the broader Sydney community.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I know that it takes up time, and it's been a very important project. It's been going on for a long time, and it's now starting to bear some real fruit. So thank you very much for your contribution at those meetings on our behalf. The water is a big part of Hunters Hill, although we don't necessarily think of it that way at times. Any further discussion required, councillors? To receive a note. Councillor Sanderson, did you want to say something? One moment. Councillor Sanderson?
Yeah, look, I'd just like to thank Councillor Williams for his contribution, and it is an incredibly positive report, but a bit like the Happy Hens a bit earlier, there's so many different aspects to it that are so positive. And one that Councillor Williams didn't mention, which I was quite impressed by, is that the Minister of Planning, the Honourable Dr. Rob Stokes, has asked the Productivity Commission to look into the infrastructure contribution system, and I think that's something that really needs looking at. And so that's another pleasing outcome of this whole process, which is going to deliver for so many. Such a very positive effort it's been on behalf of all those that have contributed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. If there are no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Against? That's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to 4.4, which is the boat trailer parking policy, gazettal of declared area. Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Miles?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, obviously this is an issue that I've raised several times over the years. It's going to enable us to move on a lot of those trailers that that are often out of area trailers that are parked in front of people's houses. I know that Park Street and Joubert Street particularly, but throughout the municipality there are places where people do park these trailers for a very long time. They are obviously dangerous for sight lines when people are backing out of their driveways and things. They're also obviously a bit of an eyesore for local residents if they're there for months and months and months at a time. So I'd like to congratulate the staff, and this is something obviously I know that I've raised this issue for 5 or 6 years now, and it seems to rubber is beginning to hit road. So this will be excellent. I think that that there's a lot of residents that will thank us for adopting this policy, and as long as it's executed properly, but there's a lot of residents that have been calling for this for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Anybody wishing to speak against? For? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Miles that we've been waiting for this for quite a while, and I think it's a very important addition to sorting out issues within our neighbourhoods. I'd just also like to mention, in addition to the residential issue, I've noticed that there are numerous trailers parked in our reserves and end of streets, which I think people probably see as being not impacting on residential areas. However, I think they're taking up valuable space for our residents and others to park and enjoy our important community areas. So I think that this will hopefully be able to deal with that issue as well. So I commend the recommendation. I think it's a great initiative.
Thank you, councillor. Any further discussion required, councillors? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, I concur with both Councillor Williams and Councillor Miles, and I particularly look forward to seeing the relief it's going to offer for the people who live around the Woolwich Marina. Obviously, there'll be more to be done there, but this is a great initiative, and I'm very pleased we're finally going to get it into place. Thank you.
Thank you. No further discussion, councillors. I'll put the recommendation which is there on 202. All in favour? That's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We move to 4.5, which is the Sydney Water licences at Thorn Street, Hunters Hill, and Earnshaw and Mars Street, Gladesville. It's a cancellation of agreements. I was a little bit slow to look up. I think it was moved Councillor Crassoy, Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Crassoy. Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Yeah, just briefly, how long have we been paying this land tax? Or have we not paid
General
it?
Manager.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our property expert.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't know about expert, but we haven't paid it. It was the first time we've been asked for it, and hence why we've reviewed the need for the land.
Okay, yeah, I just, obviously it seems like one of those little quirks, and we can just wash our hands of it. I'm sure there's can't imagine why. Was there a change in the land tax rules that all of a sudden made it apply to us, or?
I think there was some time ago, and the Sydney Water just reviewed all their outgoings and decided that, well, they're copying it on these pieces of land. They'll pass it on to the licensees, which unfortunately there is a clause in each license that we do have to meet any outgoings. But I think they've been paying it for some time, but they've finally reviewed it and trying to pass them on. It's about the response I got was about $20 million that they've been paying on these types of licenses that they've now pushed back on.
And with the, once it reverts back to them, they are I understand Sydney Water's a statutory corporation, but can we then charge them rates?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I might defer to the Director of Finance and Strategy.
Come back to you on that one.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good suggestion, Councillor.
All right, cool. Maybe we can work something out with them for that 8,000. Anyway, okay, great. It's good to see that we've dealt with this.
Councillors, any further discussion required on this? Councillor Sanderson. 1 moment. Please go. Almost. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, look, I have some concern over allowing this licence to cease. That would be, do we have any guarantees that Sydney Water will maintain these bushland areas as well as we do? Is there any prospect of them being fenced off so that there's it's going to block access for those of our residents who might enjoy these areas?
There was a question to the General Manager. Your opinion?
To Mr. Tobin.
Please go ahead.
Look, I could probably answer that one. In relation to the large parcel of land, near Thorn, it's just not being maintained at all at the moment. So there's no, I don't think it's going to change. It's just bushland, overgrown bushland. Then in relation to the other parcel in Earnshaw, it's just low grass at the moment. I'm not certain the council's actually mowing it. It's a very sort of probably maintains itself really, because it's just shrubs and just some sort of natural grass there. But we would put the onus back onto the water board if it became it wasn't being maintained, that they have to maintain it. It's their land.
Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, the other point is there any prospect of them fencing this land off for any reason to block access to our residents?
The Thorn Street has already got a fence around it. It's quite, you can't actually get into it. And the other one is open. They could, but you couldn't see any real reason to fence it off. It's just a very simple piece of land, triangular piece of land. It's not very big. I doubt they would. And the thing is, it's got a very large sewer main through it, or water main through it. So there's no development potential, in my opinion, that they could come in and say, well, let's sell the piece of land and get a building on it because of what runs through the site. So I think it's really back to them. Yeah, hopefully this will open up some communication on, and then they might back down on actually wanting to claim this outgoings out of us. But we did ask them not whether we could get out of it, and they said no, we had to pay it. So hence why we've got the report before council tonight.
Councillor Sanderson, did you wish to speak against this?
Look, I think those questions have been answered, but I would have preferred that we had a little bit more in the report so that we better understood what it was that is being proposed. I was of a mind initially to perhaps defer the decision if that's not going to be a problem.
Okay. I'll come back to you in just one moment. Is there anybody wishing to speak for the recommendation? Councillor Crasoy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to actually also add to Councillor Collins' question was that we have been, I gather, and if we haven't been a resident, has been maintaining the smaller block because although it's mostly just soft grasses, it is maintained, it's mowed, and it has like a couple of trees on it. And there's also the safety of the larger block on Thorn Street. It's fenced off, but you can get through the fence. And so I was wondering about us actually taking a fee from Sydney Water for keeping those pockets of land presentable. But, no, we don't want to take on any costs with this. Absolutely, we should just pass it back to them. But if we can get a little something for taking care of it for them, then we ought. And paying them rates, them paying us rates would be a great idea. So
Noted. I think I'll come back to you in a moment, Councillor Sanderson. Anybody wishing to speak against Councillor Williams? For Councillor Williams? Just for a moment. Please go ahead.
Yep, I'm not speaking for or against, but I have a question or a comment in relation to handing it back to Sydney Water, and it really does concern me the way some of these agencies cost shift their problem onto communities that shouldn't be bearing it. But having said that, I'd be concerned about what can be done to ensure that they maintain this piece of land if it's passed back to them, because we're talking about in the Thorn Street 1.38 hectares of parkland or bushland. And okay, it is fenced at the moment, but it is an important access route. And I've used it many times myself to gain access to the Great North Walk. It clearly is an important part of the Sydney Water's infrastructure. It's where the siphon for the northwestern sewer main goes under on its way out to Manly, to North Head, and it's where the commencement of the major stormwater storage tunnel was constructed during the Olympics to make it more palatable for people to sail during the Olympics off Sydney. So it is an important piece of infrastructure from the Water Board's perspective. But it is also equally a very important aspect of our bushland in that area. And I'd be interested to sort of know what are the obligations of Sydney Water to maintain and improve the environmental and public aspects of particularly the large parcel of land, because it is a very big part of that strip along Lane Cove River. So is there some process or some way that we can find out if it's handed back to them? Do we as a council have an opportunity to require them to maintain that land at an acceptable level? And does that mean that we could lose our access down to the Great North Walk, which is currently available, I guess, by default, because there is no gate that stops people? It's a bit like the link down at Rocher Avenue across Tarban Creek. I think we formalised that a couple of meetings ago, but those access routes are important, and I think that bushland is particularly important. And if they're taking ownership or taking back the lease, then what is our ability to ensure that they improve the environmental outcomes and the public access down there?
There's three issues: the maintenance of the land, the obligations of Sydney Water, and the access. I think
Yeah.
the last couple of speakers. So could I put that back to you, General Manager?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Tobin. Go ahead. Yep, not quite. Mr. Tobin.
Look, just in relation to them maintaining the land, I would think we'd have all the rights under the Local Government Act to issue orders if they, vermin, weed control, those sorts of things. I'd say that, it's not being maintained at the moment. My observations are walking down there, council's not spending any money, certainly on the large portion of land. Yes, the other portions, something's minor's happening on there. So we, will it deteriorate? Well, it's not going to get any worse because we're not actually spending any money on it now. Access, that's something that would have to be discussed, and I'm not sure where other entry points are to the Great North Walk. If this one is that important, then maybe council should continue with the licence, but it will cost money to do that. And the licence agreements state the council has to maintain the land. So if we continue with the licences, there may be an obligation for us to do more work down in the Thorn Reserve area down there, which, I don't know whether that's budgeted for. Well, I'm sure it's not. Was that the three? I'm not sure if I got all three.
I think you did. Councillors, before we go back to the debate of the recommendation, are there any other queries, clarification required? Councillor Collins?
No, not. I'll just speak.
No clarification. So could I come back to you, Councillor Sanderson? You had a thought of maybe deferring this. Do you still feel the same way after those questions have been answered?
Well, I think the outstanding issue is access. I guess we could potentially make the motion subject to negotiating some sort of access arrangement for our residents. That'd be one possibility as opposed to deferring. I don't know which would be more preferable to other councillors, but I'd like to be sure that our residents still have the benefit of being able to get through there.
Mr. Tobin, just one moment. One moment.
I'll do it.
Please go ahead.
I'm just looking at the survey. Thorn Street actually runs down to the public reserve. So there is, certainly we have the ability to get access down to the reserve and to the walk. We just can't go through the hatched area that's in the plan that's on the agenda. But there's certainly access points subject to being able to walk through that way. I haven't walked down it, but there's certainly still the ability to get access down to the walk without having to cross the water board land.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson.
Well, I wonder whether I could suggest a small amendment to the motion in that case, because I think it's going to pass. But just that in the process that we there is some negotiation about access for our residents. I don't have the words for that.
Negotiate suitable access, is that?
Yes.
So just that we negotiate suitable access. Can you remind me who moved and seconded the motion? Councillor Collins and Councillor Grassoy. Are you happy to have that we negotiated suitable access added to the recommendation there, councillors? Councillor Collins first.
No.
No.
And I'll explain why.
Right.
Would like.
Okay, that's okay if you're not willing to have that. Go ahead now.
Me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, look, I understand the concerns. What seems to have happened here is some clever lawyer at Sydney Water has found a way to recoup some costs and improve their budget. I think what staff have asked for here is the ability to go in there, empowered to cancel the licences. I don't know whether it'll even come to that because they're still going to be stuck with the land tax, and then they're going to have all sorts of other obligations. So we actually have less obligations by cancelling the licence because we're not doing anything anyway, because we're not maintaining it. If they have the licence, they're obliged to maintain it. So if anything, they're in more of a position to have to do stuff than they are now, where they have to do nothing because we have a licence over it. Now, I suspect you go in and offer to cancel the licence, they might just waive the land tax. But what we don't want here is a motion that basically shows all our cards and says that we're asking for access, because then all of a sudden they've got something to, now I'm hoping they're not going to listen to this meeting, so I think there's far too many councils to deal with. But if it comes to a recommendation and they look it up and it says negotiate access, maybe just read the room and I would doubt they are going to fence this off and brick up the whole place because out of spite. I think things will just carry on just as they are, which is basically nothing being done on it. So I would recommend we just let staff do their job, go and negotiate within the parameters of whatever you need to do to just get us out of this land tax bill. And we don't need to jump at shadows. I think we're in a good position here, and they may even just decide to waive it.
Okay, thank you.
Unless we can get rates, in which case, cancel it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. So Councillor Collins is not willing to accept that amendment of negotiated suitable access. Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to move an amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but could we just get it back on screen? It probably needs to be tidied up to narrow it to the situation in... oh, well, I guess it doesn't if we just see it again. What I would suggest, rather than that some negotiation for access, that the council in the process be mindful of access or access to these lands by our residents.
Is that how you like it? That's it.
That's fine.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Williams, Councillor Sanderson, you wish to speak further to it, or do you feel that it's clear?
Look, I think it's clear, Mr. Mayor, so I'm happy to put that as an amendment to the motion or the recommendation.
Anybody wishing to speak against? I just can't see the councillors. Just one moment, please. Councillor Collins, 1 moment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, there is absolutely, whatever we put in the motion here is going to be on the desk of the lawyer that you're negotiating with. Now, I do a little bit of negotiation in my outside of council, and I don't see the value in us showing our. I mean, the fact that it got to this, a quiet email about just raising our concerns would have been plenty. But now you want to have this on the motion, send it to the lawyers who you're going to be negotiating with, so they've got something. It is ridiculous. We're trying to tie staff's hand behind their back. We want access. I don't think it's going to change. Let's stop jumping at shadows and making it harder for staff to do their job. I mean, that motion is patronising.
I just remind you that even the broadcast is recorded. So
no, it's recorded. That's fine. I'm happy to stand by that. I think it's patronising.
All right. Anybody wishing to speak for the amendment? Against the amendment? I'll put the amendment. Those in favour? Against? That's lost. Thank you. I go back to the original recommendation, which is there. If no further discussion is needed, can I put the motion, councillors? I'll put the motion. Those in favour of the recommendation there. That's carried and it's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. Can I move on to, excuse me, 4.6, licence agreement 12 months for the use of 42 and 46 Gladesville Road, Hunters Hill to Sydney Community Services. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams. One moment. Please go ahead.
There we go. Yeah, I've got nothing more to add. I think it's just a process which we need to go through. That service provides invaluable community outcomes, and it's a process which we need to continue in the short term or in the longer term as well. But in this case, it's a 12-month licence agreement. It's a long-standing arrangement, and I think it's worthy of continuing because of their contribution to our community.
Thank you, councillor. Anybody wishing to speak against the recommendation? For the recommendation? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Against? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. 4.7 we've dealt with. 4.8 is the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee held on the 15th of April 2020. Moved Councillor Collins, seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Collins, would you wish to speak to this? No. Councillors, anybody wishing to speak to this at all? Can I put the recommendation that's a receive and note? Those in favour? Against? That's carried. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I think that's the last item on our agenda. Is there any general business tonight, councillors? No general business. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience at the beginning of the meeting when we commenced a little bit late due to a technical difficulty, and I wish you all a good evening. Thank you. Good night.